Time now for our rants and raves, and I'm going to start with you, Jon.
Okay, so I have a rant for a very, very dim-bulbed Republican Michigan state representative named Matt Maddock, who, along with his wife, the co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party, has quite a track record of serial lying, claiming the election was stolen, the insurrection at the Capitol was staged, COVID is no worse than the flu, you know, the GOP platform. So Representative Maddock is upset over being called out by fact checkers for all these fantasies, and he's filed something called the Fact Checker Registration Act, a bill that requires fact checkers to register with the state, take out $1 million insurance policy, while allowing anyone to sue the fact checker over, quote, wrongful conduct, whatever that is. But here's the punchline, Emily. Here's a quote from Representative Maddock. This isn't about journalists or free speech. It's about the fact checkers who've been injected into our First Amendment right to be wrong if we want to, end quote.
Is this going to pass?
I don't know, but I don't see that language in the First Amendment. And you certainly do have a right to be wrong, because if it becomes against the law, there isn't enough prison space in the universe to hold all the guilty.
True, all of us do. All right, Joanna.
So I have a rave for Sally Busby, who was just named this week to be the new executive editor of the Washington Post, succeeding Marty Baron. Her appointment is interesting for a lot of reasons. First of all, it was a surprise. There were several internal candidates, and she was apparently surprised even to people within the Washington Post. She comes from the Associated Press, where she's executive editor. It's a wire service, which we have certain perceptions of, but she makes a really good point that what they do and the breadth of what they've been able to do is far beyond the old sort of traditional, churn out the stories. I mean, they really do amazing visual journalism and complex long-form journalism. She's also a woman who has risen to the top of a newsroom, and apparently at the AP was a real role model for women and mothers in the newsroom. And so I'm really interested. She inherits a newsroom with deep pockets, a very wealthy backer, a lot of opportunity and audience, some internal conflict over diversity in the newsroom and over social media. So it's really going to be interesting to see how she does, and I wish her a lot of luck.
And very big shoes to fill.
Yes.
Those left by Marty Baron, of course, who was also the editor here at the Globe, and was very popular there in some ways. And, he got out at just the right time, stayed there the perfect amount of time, and it became a big star, frankly. Yep. All right, Lylah.
So I have a rave for BU's journalism students who collaborated with journalism students at the University of Maryland on this really great investigative report into how the Massachusetts boards of health were overwhelmed during COVID, and how OSHA was kind of ineffective. They called it asleep at the switch. And the end result is that workers were not adequately protected. There was little government oversight of businesses and even less accountability for businesses. It's an immensely important story. It was just published by the Associated Press, so it's pretty much everywhere. And it's definitely worth your time to read and to consider the kind of level of protections workers should be able to expect and who's supposed to enforce them.
Wow, I'll take a look. All right, Jeremy.
I have a rave for the thriving local journalism startup scene in Provincetown, Massachusetts, on the Cape. Two organizations that have started up in the last couple of years. One, the Provincetown Independent, a weekly newspaper, started in 2019. They've already got almost 3,500 subscribers. They're putting out paper every week talking about important issues like affordable housing, but also things like bird sightings. Then there is a new startup talk show called called Wake Up in Provincetown, that is put out by a couple of guys in the restaurant industry. They have celebrity guests on every week. They do it live every Friday from the Provincetown Brewing Company. They've got politicians on. They're doing real coverage and trying to appeal to a lot of people who have come down to this part of Massachusetts permanently because of the pandemic.
All right, and finally tonight, I have a rave for the Boston Globe and its coverage of what's been going on with the Massachusetts State Police. I mean, they have been excellent, unrelenting for several years now. We would never know about the overtime scams, about all the stuff that's just been that went out on Troop E and all that at Logan Airport. So I can tell you, for one, I've really appreciated it, and I think it's going to lead to meaningful change inside the ranks. And I'm sure it's been very painful for some of the leadership over there and some of the rank and file that have nothing to do with any of this, but enough of them were involved. And thanks to the Boston Globe, we know a lot more about it than we ever would have known. And we talk a lot about police reform. Well, maybe this is going to be the instigation for just that kind of that, at least on the state police level at any rate. And kudos for the Boston Globe for keeping it in our eyesights.